I wanted to show you a few things just to get used to watercolors. Again, I know that the watercolors are totally crappy. You've got crappy brushes. We're not using real watercolor paper for our practices, but it's just to get used to the idea of, just how to use them. And then if it's something that you really like, you can go out and, buy some half-decent watercolors. But this will totally do for our project. Okay, so I just want to show you my setup and the things that you need. So whether you're working from home or you're in class, so you're going to have your black book. So imagine this is your black book. I don't have one, so I just have paper. You're going to have your awesome watercolor painting kit. I have a scrap piece of paper. That's going to be my testing page, so I can just test out the colors. And then I have a napkin. You can have a paper towel, you can have a napkin, you can have toilet paper, anything. You just want something to sort of dry your brush off with. I also have a glass of water, and I have my paintbrushes. Okay, so we're ready to go. Now remember the value scales that we did back in tattoos. So again, for value scales, we're going from like dark to lighter. We're just going to do the same thing with watercolor paint, but let me show you how this works, okay? All right, so I'm going to grab my brush. I always have a bad habit of, I drink a lot of coffee, so I have my coffee with me, and then when I go and clean off my brush, I always have to make sure that it's not going in my coffee mug. Done that before. Watercolor paints, I'm sure you've used them before, but I just want to make sure that you're all good. This area here is for the actual mixing, okay? So you're just going to pick a color. I'm feeling like, oop, almost did it, my coffee mug. I'm feeling like red. So I'm dipping my paintbrush in the water, and I dip it here in my paint just to kind of, activate some of the pigment and get it on my brush. And then I'm doing it here. Now, whenever I paint, just a tip, this looks really orange on the video, but it is red. I always mix the color from here and paint from here. I don't want to mix the color in here and paint from this area, because what will happen is I might get like some spots of like a lot of watercolor on my brush, and then when I go to paint, it's not going to be even. So lots of watercolor. Now, this paper that I have here is just to see how opaque it is or how see-through it is. So it's very sort of see-through. So I want to sort of do more from here. It's really hard to judge how opaque it is on here. So that's why I always sort of test it on here. So I like to get it pretty opaque. Okay, something that looks pretty good. I don't know if you can tell the difference on the camera, but I want to do a value scale. It's called a gradient. So we're going to do two types of gradients, and the first one is just a long gradient. So the point of this is just to learn how to use your water with your watercolor paints. Okay, so we're going to start off with just doing it pretty dark on here. I'm going to use my water, so I'm dipping my water in my brush, but I got quite a bit on it, so I'm just going to dab it just a little bit onto the paper towel. So I can I'm pulling the paint across, and then I want it to go to nothing, right? So I'm going to dip my brush again. I don't need a whole whack load of water, so if I just tap it there, it gets rid of a lot of it. I don't want it totally dry, right? And I'm just going to bring that. And then if I want it totally dry, it makes it really clear for me, okay? Now a tip about watercolor paints, it looks one way here, but when it dries, it's going to look different. Now, normally there's watercolor paper that you would paint on, which is thicker, so it absorbs it a lot more, which makes it look nicer, but, we're poor. That's a long gradient, okay? So I've taken a while to kind of go, from dark to pretty much nothing, okay? So, and again, you're just using your water and just using your paper towel just a little bit. Let's do a short gradient. I'm going to load up. I want a pretty heavy-duty pigment, so that's pretty dark. Okay, so I'm just going to put a lot of pigment down. Okay, as this one's drying, you can actually start to see the subtlety of it. So whenever you're judging watercolors, always judge it by how it's dry. Okay, so for this one, I just want to hit it with a bit of water, and I'm kind of letting the water do the work. So I'm doing a very short gradient. So it's like you put a lot of pigment in here and you let the water kind of do the work. It's kind of like, You know, when I said no smudging, we put a lot of pressure down with your pencil and then you pull it apart. So I want you just to sort of play with that. Maybe do a page just trying some colors, different colors if you want. Always test out your colors here first. Okay, that's nice and deep. And just try a few gradients until you get better and better and better at it. Okay, so I just want you to get used to experimenting with the paint and getting used to how much water you need to put in with your paint and how to use your test paper and how to use this. Okay, so just try a few different colors, try a couple of short gradients and try some long gradients, maybe with another couple colors, okay? Because this is just a skill we got to get good at, okay? If you're not happy with it, what you could do when it dries, it's hard to see everything when it's wet, so I'm going to make sure my brush is clean. If you want, you can go back and do a couple layers. If you're finding that you're not happy with that gradient and you want to do a little bit more, once it dries, then add a little bit more if you like, okay? So try and get that smooth, all the different stages, okay? Have fun.